Hey guys, this is Cam15, and I am back at it with another video for you guys. And I am back to talk another anime series that I recently have watched that I want to get out and talk about and give you my thoughts about. And I'm here to talk about the series Tada Never Falls in Love. Now, one, um, to say that I saw this series and I was intrigued because the last few weeks, really the last couple of times, I've been just watching different animes, obviously because we're in a pandemic and it's like, well, there's nothing you can really freaking do and stuff like that. So I did all that. So I'm just scrolling through anime, and I have a Verve account, so I have like essentially HI Dive, Crunchyroll, yada yada yada. And I've honestly been watching some animes, and I've watched some romance animes. I've watched Tony Kawa that I previously reviewed on this channel, and I've watched a bunch of other romance animes in the past. I'm like currently right now I'm kind of reviewing the Quintessential Quintuplets, which is like a romance series. But I'm here to talk about Tada Never Falls in Love. And it's another romance type of genre anime here and stuff like that. And you know what I would say is it's actually really freaking good. I only finished this in like 2 days or so. And I very much enjoyed this series. And from the start to end, especially the ending, I felt so good. And I was very pleased with how this, story ended. Now, if you want to know where to find this anime, you can find it on either the HI Dive channel or if you have a Verve account where you buy all the channels for only the whopping price of $9.99, you'll be able to get that essentially free too. You can watch it subbed or dubbed, whether you like it. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, now the one interesting thing about this series or about this show is that it has no source material. It has no light novel. It has no manga counterpart to the anime. This is strictly just an anime only type of series where they just made an anime and that's it and stuff like that. And yeah, so that is pretty interesting to hear because you kind of don't really hear of you know anime that do not have a manga or light novel counterpart to itself to adapt off of for the anime. Typically, you just have your light novel and your manga. Typically, you have the light novel or manga continue, and barring if the series gets a really good reputation and people and it's like gets very much beloved by not only people in different countries but people around the world. They usually just have one season and then you want to see the rest of the story, you're gonna have to either get the light novels or the manga and read the rest of it to get the end of the story. And yes, in some cases I do hate animes that do that because it's like sometimes when you go in and actually go to that and read it, and then you go back and you're like, damn, I really wish they could animate that, but it is what it is. But yeah, so anyways, I guess to what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to start off with a non-spoiler part of it, but then since the series is like I think 2 years old, I'm going to get a spoiler review where I talk about spoilers and my thoughts of the storyline or the main romance storyline going on this. So essentially, for the people who haven't watched this series yet, a generic summary essentially of this series is essentially this guy named Mitsuyoshi Tada, who is a photographer in his school and stuff like that. One day he comes across essentially a foreign exchange student named Teresa Wagner, and essentially, along with the friends and the other side characters they essentially, go through, like, I guess you can say, these fun little times hanging out while she's there in Japan. And, as the episodes progress, you see obviously Tada and Teresa's relationship start to develop and grow to the point they start to obviously start to feel or start to fall in love with each other and stuff like that. That's kind of the generic type of thing you can say about any romance genre and stuff like that. That's just my generic summary and not really spoiling things and stuff like that. But yeah, the first thing I want to talk about is the animation. I thought the animation looked pretty surprisingly good. I didn't see any faults with it. Like I said, it's a slice of life anime, so it's like there's not really much fighting or stuff like that in like, shonen type of animes. But it was a nice slice of life, anime. The animation looks good. The other characters, especially the side characters, I honestly all loved. And the one thing I can say with all the side characters is, when you're watching this, you can relate to the side characters a lot. There are a lot of side characters in this story. Not, you can even get with Tada and Teresa, and you can actually like take a step back and actually, see these characters and actually relate to these characters, because some of these characters have been in I would say similar situations that people have been in and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into too much depth with characters, but you have, mostly, you kind of have Tada's and Teresa's little backstory when they were kids, essentially kind of somewhat connect where they can understand each other on a level. I won't tell you guys, if you haven't seen it, what it is that happened in their backstories, but it's one of the ways where they connect to each other, and that's when you can say they kind of fell for each other in a way. I do like their dynamic. I do like their relationship. They're, I would say, perfect for each other, because guess what? It's a freaking romance series. But of course, you're gonna say that for the two main leads, and stuff like that. And the side cast, I really do like the side cast. All the side cast were really freaking good. Like, for example, Tada's friends, Karu Ijuin, but I'm just gonna call him Karu. He's really freaking good. He's a good friend. He's that type of friend that will have your back no matter what. And if he tells you messed up, he'll be upfront with you and messed up and tell you, you messed up, you're screwed up and stuff like that. So yeah, the comedy, I guess I could say the comedy, honestly, whenever they had a joke, in my opinion, I almost laughed at nearly all of the freaking jokes. Now, I'm kind of giving you a little bit of a spoiler, but there is this cat that Tada has, and and I think it's the third episode. They really like focus in on this cat, and I swear, the cat is like one of the funniest characters in that repeated episode. One of the greatest things in that episode. One of the greatest things in anime I've ever seen, because that cat was great, and it sucked that they didn't give no more vocal inner monologue of what the cat was thinking of what he was saying. And I was like, damn, I really wish they put more of that in there and stuff like that. So yeah, the comedy, honestly, if you like comedy and you laugh you can get, a joke pretty easily, and you start laughing at something that just is clicking, you're gonna be laughing. This show is hilarious and stuff like that. I will say it too. It is hilarious. And yes, does it have, very funny moments all the time? But when they need to get serious, especially when it gets late into the last few couple of episodes of the series, they really pull on your emotional strings and your emotional freaking, I guess you could say your heart, essentially. They tug on that heart, and when they want to make something really emotional where you feel for a character and stuff like that, you typically you might cry. I didn't cry, but it's something where I could, see somebody crying too, and where they would probably be bawling their eyes out and stuff like that. So yeah, my only negative I would say, because I perfectly enjoy this, my only negative I would say is when it comes to the side characters, because usually in some romance, animes, if they give it time, they'll have side characters end up with their potential relationships. Now, again, you can call this as somewhat of a spoiler, but it's yours to interpret. To say that the side characters and their potential love interest in their storylines somehow isn't answered by the time the series is over, you could have a problem taken away with it. Some people can have issues with the plot holes and stuff like that. At the same time, you can also have some issues with the storyline. I personally didn't have any issues with the storyline. Again, it's up to what you feel like when you watch this series. The series is only 13 episodes. And that's kind of it. And again, like I said, the way they ended, or the way they ended off, if you want to know, they ended off in a way where it doesn't really need a second season. But if they were to give a second season, it would be much appreciated. But I think since this anime is like 2 years old, they're not going to do it. But yeah. To close out my non-spoiler thoughts to get before I get to my spoiler thoughts, if you haven't seen Never Falls in Love, I highly request you give it a shot and you actually check it out because it's a really good romance anime if you're into that type of genre for anime. It really is. It's I would say one of the best ones I've watched, where you can connect with the characters and it's a nice little slice of life story where you can feel for these characters and stuff like that and connect to them and relate to them. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you do go check it out. Like I said, you can go find it on HI Dive, or the Verve, or on Verve if you have have a Verve account and you have the HI Dive channel, or you just have the complete catalog of channels from a Verve account. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. I'm guessing for you guys, what my ratings, I'd probably give it an 8.5 out of 10. I was so close to giving it a 9, but I mean, like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a B plus. So 8.5 out of 10, which is really good in my opinion. Like I said, highly request you guys check it out, especially if you're into the romance genre. And yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna be back for the spoiler section. So you're just gonna get a quick cut again to people who do not want to hear spoilers and go check out the series. Get off this video, go watch the entire 13 episodes of Tada Never Falls in Love, and then come back to get my thoughts on the spoilers. So I'll be back in a quick second, guys. Okay, guys, back for the spoilers section of Tada Never Falls in Love. Geez, I keep forgetting that freaking title, but it's such a long title. But yeah, I'm here to talk about the spoiler section, talking about this main plot of the storyline and stuff between mostly Tada and Teresa. Now, to get started off with that, the one thing we find out later, like I guess I would say halfway through the season, through the series, or through the show, is that we find out that Teresa, she's from Luxembourg, but she isn't just some typical foreign exchange student like you would go to a university or college. You'd have maybe a foreign exchange student like a normal person from the common like I guess you can say from like a level similar to you, like if you're just a regular normal citizen, and they come in and they're just regular normal citizen. Now what they take, which is different here, is instead of making Teresa and her friend Alec essentially common folk people like Tada and his friends, we find out later. Hold on a second, guys. Okay, sorry for that quick cut. Something was in the background that was kind of, you might still hear it, but regardless. Yeah, we find out that Teresa, she's actually of like royal blood. She's a princess, we find out halfway through the series and stuff like that. And it created an interesting dynamic of the fact, well, how come and how would a princess from another country eventually end up with our main character, Tada? I'll get into that later, but that was an interesting dynamic. And two, she was already, essentially engaged because the moment she was born, she was essentially going to be married to essentially this guy who I would say is probably, again, another really good character is Charles. And speaking of Charles, Charles is essentially what I would say, the antagonist to the main character in terms of, the love interest type of thing. We know that we find out that Charles eventually is essentially, prematurely engaged to Teresa. But the one thing we find interesting here is that he's actually a nice guy. And that was one thing that I actually do like in this series, because if you watch romance genre type of animes over and over and over again, typically you would have the whole thing, the side plot where you have your main character, your female main character. Somehow the female main character is connected to potentially the main male character's essentially rival in the series. And, typically that rival ends up being a total douchebag, a jerk, a dick, whatever you want to say. Somebody where he doesn't really value how much, the main female character, is, and her feelings. Um, and is also a rude dude to the main male character of the series, and totally tries to one up him and show like, oh, I got the girl and you're never gonna get the girl. Typically, most romance genres have that trope where you just have the rival being a total a-hole to the main male character, saying, I got everything, you don't. But here, they totally changed up, which I actually like. They made Charles a respectable dude where, you know what, he doesn't have those type of feelings. And unless, Teresa were to get hurt, then he would take proper action. But he was kind of a nice, respectful gentleman type of figure who, by the time you get to the end, he realizes that Teresa doesn't love him like, she loves Tada. And, when you see the ending of this, when he breaks off the engagement on his own free will to make Teresa happy, it goes to show you, yeah, it sucks that he didn't really get Teresa, who Teresa is a good, girl in it within himself, but at least he was aware to know that, I really do like this girl, but it's clear that this girl isn't, in love with me. She's in love with somebody else. So I'm going to do what would be in her best interest to go after the guy she truly loves instead of forcibly marry her and just forcibly be in a relationship with me where she might regret our relationship and stuff like that. And I did like the fact at the end, he ended up calling off the engagement and not marrying Teresa, which, if it was a type of douchebag character, they wouldn't care. He actually cared about Teresa's feelings, which I really do like, and stuff like that. And he respected Tada for the person he was, because he knew that Tada had feelings for Teresa as well. When you find all that out when he finds that all out in the last few episodes and stuff like that. And the interesting thing, dynamic too, is that Teresa's best friend, I guess you can say also her maid, essentially, in a way, or her companion, essentially the servant to the princess, in some series. We find out that Alec kind of has something for Charles, and stuff like that. And by the time the end, apparently it's hinted at that apparently they might hook up. They never do confirm if they're a couple or an item. They just kind of do the whole thing. The thing is, you find out that she likes Charles is because the one thing about Alec is, she kind of holds her arm kind of tightly, and Teresa and even Charles at the end of the last episode realizes that whenever she kind of holds her arm like that all tight, it's essentially her telling a lie. So yeah, I'll get into other characters' relationships too. The cat, Nyunko Bega. Can I just say this? I watched the English dub for this freaking episode, for this freaking series. Oh my God. The cat in episode 3 was hilarious. His voice literally sounded like a black guy. And I'm like, dog, this guy, I swear, if I do not hear more of this cat, I'm going to be pissed off. And sadly, we did not hear more of the cat and stuff like that. He appeared later on in a few episodes. We never got to hear his inner monologue dialogue, which I really think they should have really taken advantage of, because that made the cat honestly one of the best characters. Like, I'm not a cat person, but you make me laugh at a freaking cat. I swear. It was funny. Regardless, I did like the cat because he had some sort of vendetta against Tada's two friends, and he would try to go out, like, viciously attack him and stuff like that. And two, he's also a big freaking cat. But that one, episode 3, sold me on the cat, made the cat like one of the best anime characters in fucking anime history and stuff like that. Now, speaking of the other side characters, before I talk really mostly about the Tada Teresa main relationship, you have Tada's friend Kayoru. I really did like him. He doesn't really have a love interest in this series at all. He's kind of just the good type of friend who's the bro to the main character. Like I said in my non-spoiler section of this. They try to, I guess, kind of hint at a relationship with him and Alec, but Alec's kind of not feeling him like that. Then that's, like I said, we later find out that Alec has feelings for Charles. But Kayoru, he's a really good best friend character to the main male character, and he's the type of guy that gets the main character to like stop and think and realize what you've done is wrong. Like I especially like his whole arc at the end when he follows his friend, when he follows Tada to Luxembourg at the end, because after Teresa just abruptly leaves them, he follows him to Luxembourg, and when Tada and Teresa have that last, what it looks like to be their final time potentially talking to each other, he kind of slaps some sense into Tada by saying, like, dude, you're telling me you got on a plane, which you don't like to do because you're afraid of heights. You went all this way to Luxembourg from Japan to tell her, how you feel, and you never ended up telling her that and stuff like that. You need to go over there and tell her. And he was that guy at the end where, he inspired Tada to go eventually back to the party and essentially get out his feelings, making Tada say that he loves Teresa. And I really like characters who are best friends, the main male characters in these type of series, in this type of genre, who will be the like main male character's best friend. And when he fucks it all up and stuff like that, and when he has a chance to turn it all around, he's the friend that will get up in the face and tell him, look, dude, you screwed up. You need to go back and fix this. I personally related myself to him a lot because I'm the type of friend that tells my friends, like, listen, if I don't like something that you're doing, then I'm going to tell you and be honest about it. I don't like what you're doing. I don't think you should do this. In my opinion, I think you should do it this other way. You can go ahead, do it, but I think the smarter approach is do something else. And I really related to him a lot and stuff like that. I thought he was a really good character. I thought his whole funny business of him being scared of the Kappa was hilarious. Like, seriously, I was dying when he's like, oh no, it's the Kappa. I'm so scared of that thing because of a traumatic experience in his past, which is so freaking funny. He was a good thing. He's also one of the friends of Tada that Uncle Big hated. He would always try to attack him and stuff like that. But he was a good character. I really did like him. It sucks that he never got a love interest. I definitely did at some point, ship him with Alec until Alec kind of, we find out Alec kind of is loving with Charles. But honestly, I would have been down to see an Alec and Kaoru ship. The next supporting ship, we get here that kind of is related a little bit, I would say, to the Teresa Tada relationship. And that's the one thing too. There's 3 side relationships, mostly really 2 they really mostly focus on the most. And essentially, they have some inner tie-ins to Tada's and Teresa's relationship. One of the first relationships they kind of start off right off the bat is Hinako and Hajime. We find out, Hajime, he is a avid fan of essentially a supermodel named Hina, which, funny enough, I watch Domestic Girlfriend. Every time I, hear of a girl's name named Hina, I just keep thinking of the Hina from Domestic Girlfriend. Despite however you feel in the series, I know how the series ends and everything. Maybe I'll do a review on Domestic Girlfriend eventually. I don't know if I'll ever get to that. I'll have to reread and I'll have to rewatch the first season and then reread the rest of the manga. But he's crazy in love with Hina, the supermodel. We later find out that Hinako, which again is it's in her name, Hinako. What is it? We find out that Hinako, thanks to Alec and Teresa, they later find out that, guess what? Hinako is actually Hina. Now, how the hell somebody in their school can't fucking tell that Hinako is the supermodel, famous Hina? I have no fucking clue. Like, all her hair is kind of tied into a knot, essentially like a pigtail, and she's just wearing glasses. Again, I don't know. That could fool some people, but at the same time, it's like how you could maybe see the resemblance and stuff like that. And the whole thing is, you later find out that, Hinako kind of has feelings for Hajime, and she wants to tell him who she really is, but she's kind of afraid that, Hajime might not like her for who she is, and he'll only like her for the Hina side. But I think Teresa said it best, that Hina is a part of herself. So yeah, so it was like some Hannah Montana type of thing going on here. Um, and you know, you do have that one episode where they dedicate it to Hajime and Hinako, where you have Hajime eventually kind of, you know, meet Hina or Hinako as her Hina personality. And he's essentially telling her what, you know, Hinako told Hajime, you know, as he was prepping to get ready to talk to his favorite freaking supermodel and stuff like that. Now, the way they ended off that relationship, again, if you watch, again, you saw the non-spoiler part of my review, you said, I said one of my negatives was the fact that they really did not have the side relationships did not have an ending to their side relationships. And what I mean by that is, you know, the whole thing seemed like it was going to be a build up to Hinako eventually telling Hajime that, hey, I'm Hina, you know, the famous supermodel you love. And then you could have her take off her glasses, take out, you know, probably the hair tie in her hair and just let her hair out to make it so obviously he sees that it's Hina and stuff like that. And you would think, you know, he would say something romantic where he's like, you know, I don't, you know, I like your Hina side, but I really do like you. I mean, the thing is, he's also graduating as well. And they kind of don't resolve that storyline. They kind of just leave it open ended to interpretation, like, well, you know, that kind of happens and stuff like that. And it's like, if there was any relationship I would have liked to see end off, you know, good alongside the Teresa and Tada relationship, I wanted the Hajime Hinako relationship to end off nicely, where she finally has the courage to tell him. But no, they kind of don't do that. And again, the ending to this series is kind of rushed. I'm not going to lie. It is very rushed because you have most of the episode dedicating in the last episode dedicating to the fact that Tada's finally telling Teresa his feelings and stuff like that. You know, and then when you get to the, you know, credits, I was like, whoa, what's happening and stuff like that. And it kind of zoomed past things, which again, it sucks. So yeah, I did like that relationship. I don't like the way that they didn't end it. I definitely do believe if those was maybe given more episodes, they definitely could have resolved the side plot. They only kind of gave that relationship focus for one episode and they kind of just dropped it, to be honest. Same goes with the next relationship I'm about to talk about. And the next relationship is Tada's younger sister named Yui, and essentially his buddy, his freshman buddy, Kentaro. Essentially, we find out that, you know, even earlier that Yui, you know, has feelings for Kentaro. It gets to a point where we have this episode centered around their cat, Tada's cat, essentially gone, and they're looking for him and stuff like that. You know, and eventually they find the cat, and they find out that, you know, their cat is essentially trying to hit on this one cat that we later found out this one girl that Kentaro apparently has feelings for and he likes, and or who's his crush, owns and stuff like that. And essentially what we find out here is that yes, Kentaro has feelings for this girl he has a crush on, but the thing is, the girl has no feelings towards him back and kind of sees Kentaro much more as a younger brother type of figure and stuff like that. And you have a very emotional scene when Yui kind of realizes he likes her more than he likes me. You have a talk between the two at this festival, you know, the whole festival thing where you have like these booth games and everything and stuff like that. And that's when you kind of have Kentaro essentially admit that he likes the girl and stuff like that. And, you know, he kind of says like, well, you know, despite that, you know, she doesn't like me back. At least, you know, I want to stay friends to make her happy and stuff like that. And that kind of gets you upset of the fact that, you know, by the time the episode ends, she's essentially crying in Teresa's arms saying, is this what, you know, love feels like? Like, am I gonna, like, does love always hurt this much? You know, and stuff like that. Because, you know, in Yui's case, she doesn't want to stop having feelings for Kentaro, so, you know, she can just stay friends and be happy. She wants to be in a romantic relationship with him. And she kind of got rejected there. And it was a very emotional scene. You know, trust me, everybody's been at that point where they find that a person they have a crush on or the person they like eventually likes somebody else, and it's like it breaks your heart because it's like, damn, I have no fucking chance, um, because they're already invested in somebody else and they're not looking at me. My only question though, I don't know if I checked how old Yui was. Like she looked like she was, I would say like maybe a seventh grader. And the way she looked short, like she was honestly like maybe a sixth grader. She was probably in junior high or something like that. Kentaro was only a freshman. So I don't know what age. I didn't check to see what age Yui was before I did this review. It just always, the way it looks weird. Like, why would a complete taller freshman figure like a little smaller girl? Unless she was like in eighth grade and she was about to go into high school the following year, and stuff like that. But that relationship too, just like the Kajima or the Hajima and Hinako relationship, they didn't have an open ending type of thing. They kind of like they kind of give a hint that they might potentially have feelings because they kind of do a like the typical, oh, they kind of tap shoulders and bump into each other and they look at each other and they start blushing at each other. But they kind of really don't confirm, or even Yui doesn't tell Kentaro that, hey, I have feelings for you. Like she honestly didn't even tell him to begin that she had feelings for Kentaro in the first place, and stuff like that. So yeah, but that's my only negative, the fact that they didn't close out the other side relationships really well, or they didn't give any hints that the characters hooked up. But the one thing that I do like about the fact that the side relationships do that kind of help alongside the Teresa Tada relationship is, they kind of have integral type of storylines to the Tada Teresa relationship. In the case of the Hajime and Hinako relationship, the whole stuff of not revealing who you truly are and having the courage to tell. We find out that Teresa's a princess. She doesn't have the courage to tell not only her friend circle, but mostly Tada, that she's a princess and stuff like that. And, she doesn't have the courage to tell them that, and stuff like that, which she later eventually tells to Tada in the end. And then how the connection with the Kentaro Yui relationship, and I would say for both characters, of the fact is essentially, I guess you can say, the struggles because the positions they were in. Mostly this caters more to Yui, to more of Teresa, because she could kind of come to where, Yui's feeling, because she's a princess, she's already engaged to somebody else, but at the same time, she has feelings for Tada, and it's a strain on her heart because it's like, I'm married to a guy that personally I have no feelings for. Like I like him as a dude, but I personally love Tada more, and that kind of rips at her heart, which you see later on in the final episode, where obviously it's hard for her because it's like she has a job as a princess to marry this person, but at the same time her heart's also split in half because she really loves Tada, and especially about the fact that Tada eventually admitted his feelings towards her. Now the Tada Teresa relationship, I like this relationship because, it's a relationship where, through the episodes, the relationship builds the more they're with each other together, where they're put into certain situations where they're together. Like, for example, the one picture game, they were running around the school taking pictures of the members, which I thought was actually a pretty cool episode. You have that where they're essentially together and stuff like that. Their first running, he's just taking pictures, and she manages to get into the frame to the point, every time he's trying to, take the frame out of her out of the frame, she kind of ends up in his frame, and he ends up taking a picture of her and stuff like that. And we find out later in the series that Tada, he hasn't been able to take that next step to move on in his life because his parents died in an accident after they had left I forgot what they were supposed to do, but they had left to go do something, and they died in a tragic accident. And Tada has a hard time getting over that, as well as moving on with his life and things like that. And the one thing about the series is, that it's kind of a life lesson, is having no regrets. And what I mean by that is, the reason why Teresa and Tada can connect to each other so well is because they both have regrets in their hearts of hearts, that make each other so connectable. Like you have that one, scene when they're on their little camping trip, looking at the stars. They Tada makes a mention essentially about not letting the regret get to you so much to where and makes make another where you end up making the same mistake again or some mistake similar where you look back at it and you have the same regret you felt back of a previous mistake you made or a previous thing you did. And in the case of Todd, his first regret is not essentially saying, or being happy for his dad and saying goodbye to his dad. When his dad was leaving, he didn't want his parents to leave. He was kind of just acting like he was a kid, mind you, and a kid definitely has maybe a right to feel the way he felt, and he didn't want his dad to leave. He wanted his dad to stay with him and everything like that. And he never got to say goodbye in a respectful type of way, as his dad's leaving to, drive off with their mom and stuff like that. And he brings up the fact, like, I don't want to have, any more regrets. So, the one thing is, having regrets, yeah, you can have your regrets, but the thing is, what are you going to do to not have a regret if you make another mistake again? Are you and stuff like that, or a way to prevent another mistake happening where you end up having that regret? And that's when, obviously, that scene, which I thought was beautifully done, that conversation between him and Teresa, that's when you have eventually Teresa fall for him. You can see it in the eyes in that whole scene. That's when eventually she falls in love with him and she falls high over heels over him because she can relate to him, because being a princess and everything, her thing was back in her backstory when she was younger, she worried Alex so much, to the point she thought, Alec thought she was like very badly hurt, and it made Alec cry. And her thing is she didn't want to make anybody cry, and she has a regret of the fact that she made Alec worry so much about her, even though she was a-okay and stuff like that. And that's her regret, and that's where these two characters can connect on one another of a level and stuff like that. And I really did love the last episode, or the one episode before she eventually goes back to Luxembourg, abruptly, when they had essentially their date with the samurai rainbow warrior type of thing, where they essentially just hung out together as essentially, I would say, a date where there was just those two and they had a good time and everything. And then you have that whole scene at the end where you think Tada is going to tell, and it's with other romance genres, it's the whole thing where you have a point in the story where you hit the low point where you have the female main character and the main male character. You get to the point where the main male character should say to the female main character in that instant, like, hey, I love you, and stuff like that, and admit his feelings to her. But Tada doesn't do that. He kind of is like, hey, you want to come in for some tea or something like that? And she's like, no, I'm good, and stuff like that, which you can show that she wasn't really thinking that he was going to say something like that. She was probably thinking like, he was going to say like, I love you and stuff like that, and I need you, and I want to be with you for the rest of my life. And that eventually gets her to the point where her and Alec leaves Japan abruptly, and then you have Tada, who is scared of heights, goes on a plane to try to talk to her because his grandpa is, friends or acquaintance with somebody in Teresa's little royalty thing. He goes all the way over there, and he just, in a way, kind of comes out of the blue, and she doesn't expect this. And essentially, that's when, they have this talk, and that's when they kind of essentially kind of an emotional type of way, which is kind of the low point where they have the emotional way where he finds out that she's getting married to Charles, and he's kind of just like, oh shit, this is awkward and stuff like that. And again, like I said, I like the one in the final episode, the fact that Kaoru, Kaoru, he went after, he was essentially with Tada, like behind the scenes, but eventually he catches up with him. He's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're telling me you came all this way, and yes, you find out all the truths and stuff like that, but listen, damn the truth you found out. Did you tell her, the truth? Did you tell her how you feel about her? and stuff like that. And it becomes an emotional whole thing where he gets a letter from his grandpa's from the one girl who invited him to the party that is going to celebrate Charles and Teresa's in their engagement and their wedding celebration and stuff like that. Where you have this very emotional scene where the friend's like, listen, you want to do this? Do you want to tell her how you feel? Then grab this note because you're not gonna freaking because this is your last chance to do it. The wind blows the note away and it goes to the lake, and essentially you have Tada chasing down this note before it gets to essentially the sewer areas, because you see the bars and sewers and you just have him this close, and it's a very emotional scene where you have Tada essentially realizing, listen, I need to tell her, I avoided her for far too long and she's very important to me and stuff like that. And when he finally gets, I was like, that's it. And then when he shows up at the party, he wants to talk to her. And they have that very emotional talk where he eventually confesses and he tells her that he loves her. And you can see in the look of Teresa's face, it's really hard for her because it's like, I'm getting married and you're now telling me all this, and it kind of has her heart all broken, but she, he says like, this is what I can have. This is my closure and stuff like that. And that's when, you cut over back to Japan, and that's when you get the end credits. I'm like, I'm watching this and they show the end credits. I'm like, wait, what happened? What happened? And then, you have all the resolution plot lines happen and stuff like that. And, in a similarly way, in the same place they were at when they first met, and the one thing that I did like too is every time they were together, not every time, but most of the times they were together, it ended up raining. And in the last scene, it ended up raining. And that scene, the next thing you know, he's kind of just standing in the rain, and you just have this umbrella come out of nowhere, and he turns around, he sees that it's Teresa there, and Teresa's saying essentially she wants to be with him for the rest of his life, and she never wants to let him go. They have their nice hug, and yes, they give us a kiss. They give us a kiss here. I think they kissed earlier. Well, Teresa kissed him earlier when Tada was sick, but even though the angle of the kiss wasn't the best, they still got a kiss. And that's the one thing you build up to these romance animes. Are these two characters going to kiss and stuff like that, which essentially is the cap off to them eventually admitting that they both love each other. And, they give the kiss. It was really nice and really sweet. And I really felt for the characters there. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. Now, obviously, some people are just going to say, like, why would the parents of their daughter, who would be a princess, who would eventually become the ruler of their country, like just openly just be like, yeah, you can essentially, break off this engagement and essentially be what they would know as a simple commoner, just a regular person. Yeah, is that believable? No, that definitely would not be believable. Like literally, if that were to happen in real life, I would actually be shocked if there was a legit princess that essentially traveled abroad to go learn school with other people, not in her type of class, in terms of, where she sits on top of the pecking order, only to fall for essentially a common dude, a regular guy. And then guess what? The guy tells her how he feels about her, and then guess what? She's going to forego being a princess and just be a regular, person and be with him. I would have liked to see maybe an OVA or stuff like that, or maybe even a second season if they wanted to do it, about how their relationship would have been handled. As well, it could have been a way to close up the other relationships. But it was really freaking good. I enjoyed it. Again, I have to give credit to the parents for letting the daughter want to pursue her own dreams and fall in love with somebody she wants to fall in love with. Because usually in those type of royalty type of things, we know in royal, where it's typically a person of royal blood, the parents are like, no, you're going to be strictly marrying this person, and there's not a dang thing you can do about it. Again, I also do like the fact that Charles recognized her feelings, the fact that she liked Teresa, or Teresa liked Tada, and stuff like that. But, yeah, this show was really freaking good. Like I said, when Teresa and Tada eventually get back together again, I had a nice little smile on my face, and I was like, that was really good. But that's all I gotta say for this series. Tada never falls in love, which is a freaking lie of a freaking title. Because by the end, he eventually falls in love. So yeah, it was a good series. I very much enjoyed it. You can honestly, if you dedicate yourself to, like I said, watch the series in a day. It's really freaking good. I enjoyed it and I had, a fun time watching it. And yeah, so other than that, guys, if you guys like the video, leave a like. Put in the comment section your thoughts on Tada Never Falls in Love. Did you enjoy this anime? Did you not like it? Who was your favorite character? Did you like the Tada Teresa relationship? Stuff like that. Hit that subscribe button if you want to get any more anime series review, as well as also in the comment section, I forgot to mention, put any anime series you would like me to request to review. The only other anime series I'm currently reviewing right now is One Piece and Fairy Tail. But other than that, I'm just kind of that. And so, anyways, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Hope you guys are having a great rest of your day or night, or whenever you're checking out the rest of this video. Until then, guys, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.